Hello, hello, beautiful people. How are you? Welcome to Tuesday. It's Tuesday and I am live at 5. At least it's 5 o'clock here in the French Riviera. How are y'all doing? Are you ready to talk about letting go of fear? That is today's focus. I'm glad to see some of you chiming in from the US and beyond. Welcome. So if you don't know me already, I am Dr. Andrea Pennington. I am founder of the Real Self-Love Movement and creator of the Attunement Meditation. And I'm going to lead you in a process today that is all about overcoming fear. I, as a physician, tend to meet people who get held up by fear, whether that's fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of success. Yes, that exists as well. People come wanting to improve their health, for example. People also have come to my business looking for support to getting their message out into the world. Like they feel like they've got this burning desire to share their truth, to share their methodology. And some of them, they start doing the branding work that I prescribe, and then they stop. And I wonder, what is it that has held you up? Why are you telling me that you've got this burning desire to help and heal, and then you stop? And many times it's because of fear. So I'm going to share with you some processes to get past that fear. Now, in the past, I don't know if you've ever seen this on social media. Have you ever seen when people type things like, what does fear really stand for? F-E-A-R. Anyone? Type into the chat. What do you think are some of the clever ways that people have described fear? I'm just going to get my notes here. British Voiceovers is ready. Ninette in Denmark is ready. I love it. Let's get past this fear. I think this is one of those times for many of us that we are willing to face our fear. This is also a time when you almost cannot hide from your fear. In other words, by being in this lockdown situation, millions of people around the world are finally having the time, and some of them are being forced to really look at themselves. You can't distract yourself by going to the pub or going out with friends or even working too hard unless you're working from home. So in other words, most people who haven't taken the time to really do this deep inner work to find out, what is my true purpose and why do I hold myself back? Why do I hide behind all of these masks instead of living my authentic truth? And so as painful as it is to be in lockdown situations, some people are actually realizing that now is the perfect time to really get clear on who you are and to identify the blocks, the old wounds, the old patterns, and the limiting beliefs that are holding you back from living up to your true potential. And fear, yes, thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Kaya. Some people say that fear is just false evidence appearing real. So I want to start to break this down. What is fear? If you think about why we have fear, then you can get to the what. So why would a human being even experience the sensation of fear? Well, it's all based on survival. So we kind of can tune in, unless you're, somewhere with some weird neurologic thing or on the spectrum, but the majority of people who experience fear, it's because you are in jeopardy. So in terms of physical survival, if you saw a person with a gun, if you saw a tiger or a bear, you would have a fear response. So tell me in the chat, how does fear show up for you? So it's a sensation for most of us. Is it in your stomach? Do you find that the fear causes you to tense up? I might get tense muscles in the jaw or the neck. When fear shows up for you, how do you experience it? Because it's really important for you to understand your own apparatus, because everybody's different. Now, typically, as I said, fear is just a reaction based on something going on in the environment that triggers something in our lower brain, our mammalian brain, that seems to be a threat. So Ali says, fear shows up in your throat and breathing. Excellent. And Gerald, what's up, G? Fear, facing every challenge and accepting responsibility. We're going to get there. We're going to get to that point after our session today. Absolutely. So, and British voiceover says you feel it in your chest. Ebby says you have racing thoughts. And yeah, and sometimes the stomach upset can cause all sorts of things, diarrhea and vomiting or constipation. So each of us has our own way that we pick up on things. And it's fear is initiated by a neurologic response. So what I mean by that is something appears in your environment. So if anyone is willing, type into the chat, what are the things that create fear in you? Because I've talked about fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of failure, but I want to get this specific for you. Now, someone did send me a message, so I'm going to read from this. All right, so this somebody that came in through our personal branding bootcamp said that the reason they keep getting blocked and not putting up the website and not, inviting clients to work with them is that fear that she doesn't know enough. Does anybody else have that fear? Like, I don't know, maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I need to get another certification or go to another course before I do this thing. That fear of not knowing enough. Now, when I started off, I said that fear, F-E-A-R, could be false evidence appearing real. Now, the thing about our brain is that fear of not knowing enough, you've got to unpack it, uncover what is holding that in place. So for example, when I emailed this person and said, what would make you think you don't know enough? You've already done the studies, she's gotten an advanced degree. She's actually been working with this type of modality of coaching that she does for years, both paid and unpaid. And I asked her point blank, do you get results? Do the clients who come to you have a good positive outcome? She's like, absolutely. And if I were to send somebody to you who is dealing with depression, for example, do you feel confident you could work it out with them? And she was like, absolutely. And I said, well, isn't it interesting that you say you have a fear of not knowing enough? So let's unpack it. And what I asked her to do is to go through a timeline of her life, or you can do this here and just feel into it. Some of you have said fear of failure, not having all the answers, not knowing, thinking that something is out of control. So for those of you that have this fear, or you can choose whatever you identify one fear just to start. And let's say it is this fear of not knowing enough. Then I want you to kind of go within, close your eyes if you need to, and ask yourself, when was the first time I experienced that? And whatever that body sensation that you typed in, the fear might come up in your stomach, or it might come in your muscles, or you have these racing thoughts. So whatever that condition or feeling in the body is that you associate as fear, trace back in your life to find out, when was the first time you felt that? Now, for many people, they end up going to childhood. And so that is where we start our work. I know that some of our dear friends on this live emission, some of you are psychics and some of you are really gifted at doing regression therapy into past lives. But for today, we're going to just work in this lifetime. So if you could go back and really tune into when was the first time you felt that fear, you will likely identify some event. So that's where we start. In other words, we look at what happened. Now, in this case, this person told me that the first time she felt the fear of not knowing enough was when a teacher called on her in class. And it was a history class. She was supposed to come up with some date of some war or something, and she got it wrong. And there was a little laughter in the class, and the teacher kind of looked at her, and she felt really embarrassed. And that was the first time she could remember that she felt that sense of, I don't know enough. And so typically, we're not conscious of this, especially if it happens in childhood. We're not consciously saying, I'm going to carry this on for the rest of my life. You know, like this individual who's in her mid, I think, 40s. You don't sit there as a seventh grader or a 12-year-old going, this is going to haunt me for life. This is going to prevent me from getting a major job, from asking that person out. Instead, based on the level of the development that you were at, your developing psyche, your ego, is going to jump to some conclusions. And the conclusion that this person came to was, I don't know enough. And that fear came from there. And so part of our work today, and I'll be leading you through a process to go into healing with that inner child, but part of our work is to go in and investigate, is it true? Remember, we said fear is false evidence appearing real. Now, in her mind, she had evidence. She could go back and say, well, yes, I was called on in class. I didn't know the answer. I was made fun of. I was made to feel like an idiot. I did not know enough. That's actual evidence. But when you pull the past into your present or project it into your future, that is not real evidence. And that's what many of us are doing. Many of us are holding on to these beliefs and assumptions that we made earlier in life that are just no longer true. And so in her case, it has caused her to overcompensate, like I did too. I was guilty of this. I felt like I needed to know more. I always had to have my facts straight. And it caused me to, in the words of my family, I have more degrees than a thermometer. Like I went and I became a licensed nail technician, and then I went to acupuncture and medical school, and then certified in age management, and so many other things. And that was my compensation for feeling like I didn't know enough, until I got to the point where I could go back, like I'm going to invite you, and identify when that happened, and then engage in a dialogue with yourself at that age. And you literally are going to ask, okay, what did you need that you didn't get? You needed someone to probably just give you a hug and say, she was just too hard on you. And those idiots laughing in the back, they didn't know either. It may be just a hug. It may be compassion that you needed. But for most of us, we took on these beliefs that we were bad or wrong or not good enough, not smart enough, not whatever enough. And then that created these compensatory reactions. We compensate throughout our lives. And then, as an adult, when something new comes up, it's not that we are consciously going, oh, my boss has just asked me for something. This reminds me of when I was in 7th grade and that teacher called on me. We're not making it consciously, because part of the mammalian brain, where these fear-based or emotion-based memories are stored, they're not tied to the upper cortex that has all of our intellect and reasoning. It is a lower brain phenomenon. So in other words, the lower brain is a pattern recognition machine, and it will take in data, whether that's an email you got or a phone call you got or your boss standing there. It feeds it back into hippocampus. So it's going between the amygdala and the hippocampus like, ooh, he's got that look on his face. Again, it's not conscious. You know, you don't actually have these words, but it's just like, oh, let's find a match. That matches this. Oh, and back then, that situation was a fearful one that had a bad outcome. And then we experience it in the now. In other words, all of the fear is an electrical, neurochemical, brain-mediated phenomenon. And if we want to diffuse it, we need to go back into the subconscious, access that memory, give the inner child whatever he or she needed, and then heal it if healing is needed, or forgiveness, or whatever, compassion, and then invite that part to be integrated so that he or she can grow up and not be dominated by that fear anymore. So part of this you're going to hear is going to require that you be willing to let go of the fear. So if you could just put your hand on your heart or on your belly, take a few deep breaths, and ask yourself, am I willing to let go of this fear? Chances are right now, your mind might say yes, but your body might say no, because you have to go in and do that repair work. So you'll see as we get through this meditation process, we have to really uncover all of the thoughts and the beliefs that are under it. Because, for example, I think somebody else typed in that one of your fears is fear of the spotlight. Yeah. Thank you, Kaya, for being bold and brave. Fear of the spotlight because of prior unpleasant experiences about being in the spotlight, which resulted in shame and embarrassment. So that feeling of, if I'm visible, the belief is what happened before can happen again. Even if you're not consciously tuning into it, that is the kind of imprint or assumption in the subconscious mind. And so even though I may say to you, oh, you've got a great business idea, want me to shine the light on you? I can bring you on my show. I can put you on TV. We can do a whole feature story about you. And in your intellect might say, gosh, that's a great opportunity. I really want that. Until the inner child is like, no, that could lead to the same shame and embarrassment. Again, it's not generally conscious, but you'll find that you start procrastinating or sabotaging. Is this sounding like real? Okay. And Shireen says, fear of humiliation from my lived experience with people who have degrees. Well, we're going to deal with that one too. And Shelley, I recently uncovered a subconscious fear that I could lose everything, materially and identity, and it shows up as needing control. Great. So with that feeling that you're like, I need to control everything, I'm sure that has, well, I know your work around surrender, but most people who are control freaks are freaking out right now. This global pandemic has forced the control freak into forced surrender, which means that typically brings up all kinds of agitation because you can't control it. You can't control this virus. You can't control when your government is going to let businesses go back to normal, la, la, la. So what you want to do in that case is go back and find out, when was the first time you felt the fear? Was it a true lived experience? Could be some past life stuff, but again, as I say, today we're going to deal with this lifetime. When was the first time you had that feeling? And go back and contact that part of you as we do this meditation. And Fernando, fear during childhood at kindergarten, when you did something and the teacher notified your parents. So then you want to think back on that and see how is it manifested in your life going forward. Okay. And Alex says, your fear is you still believe that I'm not attractive enough or not polished enough, that people won't want to see me in the spotlight. I know I have great content and good posture, but all right, Alex, we're going to work on that because you are gorgeous, my friend. I've seen you and you are radiant. So yeah, so Alex, I want you to also go back and think about, when was the first time you felt like you weren't polished enough or pretty enough? And typically, for most of us, that's somewhere in childhood. Someone teased us, someone bullied us, and many times it was because they were jealous. But in other words, what we're going to do is go and identify when it happened and really get in touch with the consequences of that. In other words, for this individual who said, I just don't know enough, so she never takes the next step in business. And now when we're able to look over the last 3 years and what that has meant to her, she spent an inordinate amount of money on getting new courses and trying to do new certifications. She's also missed out on opportunities to be earning in her business because of it. So get in touch a little bit with the consequences, because as we do this meditation in just a few minutes, then you're going to be able to ask that question that I asked a moment ago. And that question that you ask yourself is, am I willing to let this go? The reason that's important, and I'm giving you all the preamble, and then we're going to get right into the practice. The reason that we ask these questions is because if we don't address the underlying root cause of the fear, then what we often find is that there's another issue underneath it. So, for example, let's see, I had one here. Right. All right. This individual said they can't, they feel very shy about talking about the success they've had in business. And when we went back through her timeline and I said, when was the first time you felt that? And it doesn't matter if you can't remember the exact first time. Just allow yourself to go back and just point out, and maybe several, point out in your timeline all of the times that you felt it and try to go to the youngest that you were. So in her case, she was like, no, I'm not allowed to share what I'm up to because I'm not supposed to be better than other people. And as we traced it back, what we found out was she was really, really good in math, and a lot of her friends were not so good in math. And so they got their exams back, and she looked down and she got an A, and she was so excited and she was so proud of herself. And she was like, I got a 93. She got an A. And her friends, like, their faces were just crestfallen because one of them failed, she said, and one of them got like a C. And then she knew at that moment, oh my God, I can't be better than anyone else. Look at how bad my friends feel. And so she mentioned that from that day forward, she would still study, but she would make deliberate mistakes on her papers so that she wouldn't get these high scores. Now, that seems very normal, right? People do that all the time, right? We downplay, we hide. But what if that persists all the way into your 30s or 40s and you're trying to do something that you know could change the world, and yet that's holding you back? Well, then we said, is it okay? Would it be okay for you to share what you're up to, knowing that it could help other people and knowing that you're avoiding all the pain that it's done? Because typically our ego comes up with these coping mechanisms out of protection. Like, I don't want to feel bad again, so I know, I'll just mess up a few times on my exams. Or I don't want to feel bad again, so I'm going to overstudy, in the case of the person who felt like she didn't know enough. Then they end up doing more to compensate. But what is the cost of that? There's a cost physically and mentally and our time and financially. Does that make sense? So what we end up seeing is that if we fail to get underneath it, it can spring back up. Now, in her case, she said, okay, we've done this inner child work. I get it. I'm allowed to be better than other people. I'm an adult now. We went back, addressed what the inner child really, really wanted to know was, it's okay for you to be better than other people on your math test. It doesn't mean that you're bad just because they didn't do well, and it doesn't mean that you should dampen down your talents or your abilities, right? So she felt like she'd gotten the healing, she'd gotten the resolution, and then she got blocked again. And I was like, okay, what's really going on here? And what came up was, oh, she could go back even a couple more years, and the same sort of thing happened at home. So it wasn't grades this time. It was her being really good in gymnastics. She had gotten some sort of a medal and was invited to compete in some sort of regional thing. And she remembers when she burst into the house to tell her mom about, being invited to regionals. And she saw her little sister and her brother and their faces. And they looked, in her words, like they were jealous or they were mad. And she said that that was another time where she felt like it's not okay to shine or to be really, sharing my my talents in a way that other people don't. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but yeah, I've experienced that in my life as well. And so you may find that there's related fears. All right. So some of the other ones that came up, fear of disappointing parents. We have a lot of people that are in that state where they're like, particularly those of us who have immigrant parents, it's like, I came to America to get a better life for you and your brother and sister, and you need to do blah, blah, blah. So we've seen a lot of people who have that experience with immigrant parents where they literally did sacrifice a lot for us, right? They came to America or whatever country, they worked really hard, they put off some of their own pleasure to help the kids either get into university or whatever. And then many of us were made to feel bad if we didn't want to go down a particular path that they chose, not us. Anybody else felt that way? Because that is one of those things that you ultimately have to realize that you're here to live your life, not your parents. But that fear that we feel, because it's not tied to intellect, it's tied to this emotional subconscious reaction. There's a part of us that feels like, even though they know their parents won't kill them if they drop out of school or go marry someone else or whatever, the fear that it brings up inside can make you literally feel like your life is in danger. And that's one of the crazy things about the ego. It is so driven to protect us that the whole mechanism of how we take in data and store it, particularly with a high emotional charge, and then we remember it, not consciously, but it's back there always analyzing for threats in the environment. All right, does this make sense? So I'm going to read a couple of your comments, and then I'm going to go ahead and start our processing. So for those of you that are just joining us, we are doing a process to help you get past fear. We are doing a process that will help you heal your inner child, if that's what you need to do. We are doing a process that's called the attunement meditation, which will help you tune into the compassion that you or your inner child needed but didn't get, so that you can heal those wounds. You can remove the charge from that fear so that you can move on in your life, whether that's at school or work, in your love life, in your business, That's where we want to get you to. All right, does that make sense? All right, so Kati says, how can I let go that someone stole some of your business ideas and you lost a lot of clients? My mind says that there's more than enough for everyone, but my unconscious is still afraid that this could happen again. All right, so we'll deal with the fear that if you put your stuff out there, people will steal it. And yeah. All right, we'll deal with that one. And Rossi says, you took the USMLE medical boards and passed. You studied with 4 friends and all of them failed, but you passed. And they got upset because you passed and they didn't. They stopped speaking with you and made you feel so bad. I felt like I did something wrong and I didn't deserve the passing score. Wow, that is a heavy one, but we can take that as well. We can take that into this meditation to help you get free from that. And Rossi said that followed on by blocking you and made you feel insecure, such that you were not able to pass the next exam. Yeah, so these things can linger, right? Even though if you were not in an emotionally vulnerable state, or if you had a compassionate friend or counselor who could have put things into a healthier perspective, you wouldn't have had to move forward with those beliefs. And that's what we're going to be today. Today we're going to be our own therapist. We're going to be our own compassionate figure to do the healing that we likely needed back then. Because what I believe is we can transform the energy of fear. So energy, is something that needs to move. And for most of us, we get blocked. And so we can transform that fear, that false evidence appearing real, and transform it into face everything and rise. And I don't remember what Gerald popped in there, but something similar, right? Like we can literally change the way we experience it. So you may still feel that energetic charge come up when someone asks you to speak, or you're going to go on stage, or whatever it is. You may find that that comes up again. And so Sharon, you're saying fear of never feeling good enough because you were adopted. And there are a lot of people who have told me that they felt that as well. They felt like, well, if my own parents didn't want me, how will I ever be good enough for someone else to want me? So we can deal with that as well. So as we are looking at going through a timeline of your life events, seeing if there are any particular beliefs that you took on. We also evaluate the impact. So remember, we're going to really look at what has been the consequence of having those beliefs that you took on. And then we can start to arm yourself with new information, because some of it we are going to bring our adult brain into service for the wounded inner child who may not have had the intellect or the developmental state that we are in now. And that will allow us to shift those mindsets, heal those wounds, and ultimately, we may need to create our own inner dream team. So for those of you who were on the webinar that I've done with 𝐸𝐵𝐾𝐨, the Jungian psychologist, we have these archetypes, these aspects of our personality that we can activate and call forward. So today we're going to activate your inner compassionate figure. You may even need a protector, depending on what happened to you in the past. You may just need an inner wisdom or wise one who can step forward and say, okay, we're going to bring the wisdom that our inner child didn't have then, but definitely needs now. So let's first and foremost get sort of settled and comfortable. We're going to begin the attunement meditation process. So bring to mind that issue, that fear that you want to address. Okay, so we have that in mind. Now, the first step of the attunement process, I know some of you have been here for the times that I have done the attunement process. The attunement process is a 5-step mindfulness meditation practice that I've been teaching for many years, and it helps you to tune in to the love and compassion that you need to heal inner wounds, to actually access the subconscious mind and begin to reprogram it. It also brings you to a state of neutrality. If you're like super tweaked and nervous or anxious or stressed out, it can bring you to neutral, and then eventually we take you to the positive. So it's a portable, stress relieving, impulse calming meditation. So the first thing I'd like for you to do is allow yourself. The first step of the attunement meditation is allow. And by allow, we mean allow yourself to be here and fully present. Sometimes when we're faced with fear, we check out. We don't want to be in the body, so we can mentally or soulfully kind of check out. But I want you to tune in and know that this is a safe space. And we are in a nice little bubble of love and qi, as we call it in Chinese. Some good energy. So with your hand on your heart, allow yourself to be present and take 5 deep breaths. Slowly in through your nose. Hold it for 2. And then exhale slowly. And allow your body to relax. Again, deep breath in. Hold when you're fully inflated. And exhale. Slowly, slowly. And allow the muscles in your face and your body to relax. Another deep breath in. Whatever you're feeling in the body, allow it to be there. No resistance. Even if your mind is racing when you're doing this on your own, allow it to race. Just witness it. Many times we stuff away the feelings that we have. We think, oh, I'm spiritual, I should never be angry. Or I'm so developed, why should I be afraid? And we try to hide or deny or stuff away or numb those emotions. But emotion is energy in motion. It is meant to move. It's not meant to be shoved down, because that will affect your body. Like, we now know that people who have been abused and have kept secrets, or they haven't spoken up for themselves, there's a direct link to health challenges. Everything from autoimmune conditions, cardiovascular disease like heart attack and stroke, and even cancer. So by allowing yourself to just recognize that that emotion is present, that feeling, name it. In the words of Dan Siegel, I think it is, name it to tame it. Instead of like trying to stuff it or judging yourself, allow the emotion, the feeling, those racing thoughts, let them just be there. Because our feelings can be messengers. Fear as a feeling in your body or a sensation is only trying to communicate something to you. So what if you allowed the message to come so that you could address it with your intellect or call in some wisdom from above and then let it go so that that energy isn't trapped and weighing you down and causing you pain and strife? So once again, as you take another deep breath, allow yourself to feel what you feel without judgment, without trying to change it, without trying to hide it or numb it. Excellent. Excellent. Now, next up is attune. The attune part is where I ask that you tune in to your heart, to the energy of love and compassion. And this is where you might need to install or invite in your own compassion figure. Because maybe at the time that you were teased or bullied or what have you, you didn't have a compassionate figure there to help you process what happened. And so by attune, what I mean is we are a human antenna. You can pick up on energies and vibes all around you. And it's safe to say that there are people in the world and in other realms that are praying for you, that wish that you would be free from suffering and that you'd be truly happy. And so by attune, I'm asking you to tune into the radio station or TV station, WLUV, where nothing but positive wishes are coming your way. If you can also direct it just toward yourself, and just as you're feeling the fear, just acknowledge it. And by acknowledging it, you can say to yourself, wow, I know this is really hard. This is really scary. I feel you, and it's okay. I'm here. It's my sincere desire that you not suffer. I pray that you get through this with ease and grace. If you can imagine saying that to yourself, then please do. Otherwise, you can imagine some compassionate figure. Maybe your favorite pet who's passed on, or the Buddha, or Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Christ, someone that is wishing you unconditional love and acceptance and peace. So by attuning, we know that just like the radio waves are always here, love and compassion is always present. There is always a desire that you be free from suffering. And so when we tune into that and imagine that we can send that wish to ourselves or to our younger self, you can literally say, I'm so sorry you went through that. I'm so sorry that you've had to carry that for so long. And I recognize that carrying those secrets and those beliefs and that pain, that has been so burdensome. And I'm sorry that you've had to take that on. It is my deepest wish that now you can be free from suffering. So if you can send those wishes to yourself or to your inner child, like literally saying, I see you, I feel you. It's okay, especially if your inner child wants to cry. This is a time that when I first learned the compassion meditation, the loving kindness meditation, where in this stage of the attunement, we recite, may I be truly happy, and may I know the causes of happiness. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May I be peaceful and live with ease, and may I be truly well in body, mind, and heart. The first time that I started to recite those words and direct that feeling of compassion to myself, I cried like a baby, because I had been carrying this belief that I had to be perfect. And of course, I was never perfect, because even if I got a good mark or a good score, I was always looking at one little thing wrong. And so sometimes just directing that compassion at yourself will cause you to cry. Or when you're directing it to your inner child, there may be that tender part of you that gets activated that just wants to sob. And that is all fine. It is all good. And it's all welcomed. We allow ourselves to let the emotion be seen and felt and heard and acknowledged. Because sometimes our inner child never got the acknowledgement. We were made to think that we had to keep quiet, that we were wrong, that we were bad, that we were not good enough, that it was our fault. And so we send those wishes to the inner child. May you be free from suffering. And then, and yes, it's true that oftentimes men don't feel safe to cry. But guess what? Crying is not a sign of weakness. In fact, as a doctor, I can tell you, crying has been a sign of a strong, alive being since the day you were born. So we need to, for some of the men out there, they too need to tune in to their wounded inner child who experienced something where they were told it's not okay to cry. And we can heal that. So by tuning into compassion and directing that compassion toward ourselves, we start to open up into a more positive frame. And it's from this point where we're really connected from the heart that I ask that step 3 is align. And you're aligning your mind with a state of higher consciousness. And higher states of consciousness just means that we're opening up to something beyond the ego. Typically, the ego wants either revenge or it wants to just hide and stay safe. And what we're saying is it possible that there is a higher mind, a divine mind? And so in step 3, as we're in this state of positivity, we say, even if it's only for 5 minutes, may my mind be aligned with the mind of God, or the mind of truth, or peace, or love. And in those moments where you're willing to let go of that tight clinging to your way or what happened or the story, you invite in for maybe the first time into wherever the development that your inner child was at. They didn't have access to higher wisdom, whether just adult wisdom or godly wisdom. And so in this space, if you can go back to that part of you that was wounded at that time and just say, we're going to let go of fighting this and blaming, and just for a moment, may my mind be aligned with the divine. And you can ask, what did your inner child need that they didn't get? Because in step 4 of the attunement process, it's all about inspired action. We either ask for inspiration or insight, or we act on it. So you can ask that part of you that was teased or made to believe that you're not good enough, that you're not polished enough, that you're unwanted. What did that part of you need? And what can you do to meet that need? So in your visualization, you may literally bring that wounded inner child into your arms for a hug. It might be that you want to hold yourself as you were a newborn infant and simply say, you are loved. You are welcome in this world. I am here for you. I want you. If you had this belief that maybe your parents didn't want you or that you were a mistake, you give what you needed to receive. That's what the inspired action is. So you can ask your inner child, what is it you need? What can I do to meet that need for you now? And it may be that all you need is just your presence. But it may also be that you need to go in and do some repair work, shifting those beliefs. Because you can ask your inner child, okay, now that we've seen what caused these false beliefs, and now that we see that it's affecting me all the way through adulthood and it's really got some heavy consequences, what do we need to do to let it go? And maybe they want to hear that they are forgiven for what part they played in it, or they want someone else to ask for forgiveness. You can do some forgiveness work in the inspired action phase to heal. So for example, one of the beautiful forgiveness meditations that I learned from Jack Kornfield is we bring to mind that thing that you feel like you want forgiven. or that you want someone else to ask for forgiveness, you have to understand that all of the forgiveness has got to come from you, because we can't control what other people are going to do. But sometimes the inspired action that we need to take is to let go of that desire for vengeance, let go of the anger, because it's the poison that is killing us. We wish it would kill the other one, but it really is only hurting us. And so one of the ways that Jack Kornfield kind of phrased it was, again, sort of reciting some phrases. For example, you bring to mind, or maybe your inner child remembers those people that hurt us. There are many ways that I have been hurt, I have been betrayed, belittled, or abused. I remember them now. So you say that, or you imagine your inner child saying that. And these people who have hurt me, in their own pain, in their own ignorance, in their anger, they have done these things. And I choose to forgive. I forgive you. You are forgiven. And at the same time, we can also remember that there are many ways that I have hurt others, or betrayed, or belittled others. And you call it to mind. I remember them now. In my own anger, or pain, or confusion, I have hurt others, or I have hurt myself. And right now, I choose to forgive myself. I am forgiven. This is a process that might take you a long time. You might sit there in that state for a while, weeping and letting it go, letting go of that old energy. But through these practices of reciting the compassion meditation and feeling loved and cared for, and practicing forgiveness where you let go of the anger, this is giving your inner child an opportunity to process that pain and emotion so that you can let go of it. And then with that open mind, that mind that's aligned with the divine, we ask for inspiration. What is the next step I need to take? And very often with my clients and with my own practice, I invite that younger part of me to come into my heart, and I make a commitment. So you can say to your inner child, I'm here for you now. We may not have had what we needed then. We've addressed it, and from this point forward, I got your back. You have talents that you want to share with the world. That's why you came to this world, to share and to shine. And it doesn't matter what those people were thinking then. I want you to know that I'm here to see you shine. I'm here to support you. And by bringing that inner child into your heart with the affirmation that you're going to be the one to protect them, you'll be the compassionate figure, or maybe you'll be the protector, if you do need to slay. And you can reassure that part of you. And if you do this visually and literally imagine that you're welcoming this part, this wounded inner child, into your heart, and pledging that you will take care of him or her, it can be incredibly healing. And if an idea comes about what steps you take next, then fine, you know what you're going to be doing next. But with the open mind that you've created through this process, you may find as the day goes on or the next week, things start to come. The more that you let go of anger and this desire for vengeance or getting your own way, or the fear that you need to be protected, when you let that go and you get to come into the heart and be fully acknowledged and appreciated for who you are, then your energy changes. That starts to change everyone else around you, and it can invite in even more support for the next level in your journey. And then the final step, the fifth step of the attunement meditation process, is appreciation. And this is where you sit for a moment and literally bring up the feeling of gratitude and appreciation. And start with yourself. Once again, appreciate yourself for sticking with this process. I appreciate you for being here this long. Feel that sense of appreciation for having faced your fear so that you can rise. And if you're using this 5-step process because there's some agitation or stress in your world, and maybe you're not doing the inner child healing, you can just sort of tune in and say, what is one thing in my world that I am truly grateful for? It could be the wonderful cup of tea that you just had. It could be the cushion that you're sitting on. It could be the fact that there's sun today. If there's anything that you can look at and appreciate or feel or bring to mind and heart, grateful for someone who called to check in on you, or someone who brought you groceries, grateful that your family is safe. Bring up the feeling of deep gratitude and appreciation. So what we've done is we've moved from sometimes stress and pain and gotten into a neutral position, and now we're tipping it into the positive range so that we leave this encounter with a sense of safety, the sense of being seen and heard and valued and appreciated. And all of it is exactly what our ego has been wanting. It's what the inner child, it's what we as humans all want. We all crave connection. We crave to be seen and heard and understood and appreciated for who we are. We all crave this freedom to express ourselves. And so if your family of origin or the place you grew up didn't provide that for you, you can provide it for yourself. And that's what reparenting is all about. And that's one of the things that you can do with this 5-step attunement process. So if some things have come up for you, then you can just make a note of it. Do the journaling work that's part of the 3 keys to becoming the hero of your life. Or join us this weekend for Stories with Soul, where you can get live coaching from me in a private Zoom session. Saturday and Sunday, we'll be teaching the hero's journey. So looking at these life events, you can transform these painful turning points, heal them, and transform them into the motivation to rise. You can literally activate your inner hero, that hero archetype, so that you transform your inner narrative, the story that you tell yourself about yourself. All of that can be transformed. Now, I've given you a taste of it. You can certainly take the free life writing course called The 3 Keys to Becoming the Hero of Your Life. And as I said, you can join me this weekend. Stories with Soul is a life writing workshop being held this Saturday and Sunday. And that is where I will be personally leading you through the hero's journey. So I hope that this process has been helpful for you to see a way that as you're doing journal writing, you can now bring in meditation and visualization to bring forth these parts of you that need healing. You can start to rewrite these beliefs that you held and let the other ones go. And over time, the more that you do this with a visualization, the reason why we want to make it so that you feel it is because you can start to rewire the brain and start to make new connections of safety, of wholeness, of connection, and love. All right, so thank you, British voiceovers. Yes, the book, The Real Self-Love Handbook, is it's designed to help you work through these phases of learning who you really are. That is, identifying the ego or the programmed self versus the real self. There are several exercises that take you through a self-awareness. In this book, it's a 5-step process as well, called the Cornerstone Process. You move from awareness into acceptance. So for those of you that did experience some resistance or some energy where you realize, oh, I've got some wounds that need some healing, or you got to release some anger, well, step 2 that's outlined in the Real Self-Love Handbook gets you into acceptance, where you're no longer blaming your family, the economy, the president, the virus. You get into radical self-responsibility, and that's the acceptance. And then we move into accountability, which is where you are accountable for what your life is going to be like moving forward. Step 4 of the cornerstone leads you into the same thing that we shared today, which is inspired action, and then into appreciation. So in the Real Self-Love Handbook, it is literally a handbook that will deliver you from whatever state you're in. In my case, it was depression and anxiety that this 5-step process got me through. I've used it with people who were dealing with addiction and eating disorders and anger, people with health challenges like cancer and diabetes and autoimmune conditions. So working through the Real Self-Love Handbook gets you to a place of unconditional self-acceptance and self-love, so that whatever you're trying to manifest in life, you've got a firm foundation. Because what I realized is, if you don't love yourself, or maybe those words don't fit for you, but if you don't feel that you deserve health, vitality, success, or love, then very often those hidden beliefs of that lack of worthiness will manifest in some way. And so yes, the book is available online. You can get it everywhere. And next month, the audio version is coming out, the audiobook. So for those of you that buy the Real Self-Love Handbook, I will give you the audiobook free. You just send me an email with your proof of purchase. And this meditation process, the attunement meditation process, you can download it for free. Just visit my website, andreapennington.com, and you'll see there's a link for the attunement meditation. That way you can download it, you can listen to it again, you can use it for your inner child work, or you can just use it to get into a positive state before you start manifesting something amazing in your life. So thank you for being with me today. This has been a very calming experience for me. I'm feeling like zen and chill, and I will continue to send out these good vibes to all of you as well. So please know that whatever you're going through, as you're either going back to work, or you're now going to be looking for work, or you're starting a business, this process of looking over your life and becoming the conscious soul co-creator of your life is what the human journey is all about. Like, we are all on a heroic journey of the soul. And I'm just one of the many mentors here to support you in this journey. So thank you for being here. And remember, until we meet again, you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll see you next time. Oh, by the way, Thursday of this week, I'm interviewing Loretta Graziano Brunning. She's a PhD who wrote a wonderful book called The Science of Positivity. So if you also need to rewire your brain and start creating new positive pathways, then join me on Thursday for that live. And that will be at 12 noon Eastern. So it's an hour shifted from when I did it live today. So make sure that you follow me on YouTube and Facebook and turn on notifications so you're notified every time that I go live. Much love, my dear friends. Bye.